Home is where the heart is, even when it's broken. This is Kharkiv, trying to stand again after months of Russia's relentless bombardment. Pockets of life are returning, but for so many it has twisted beyond recognition. Pick a door, any door. Larisa Nestorenko is a woman of faith. She worked in the subway, and when war came, she lived there too. Her house destroyed by shelling. She cries all the time. Everything is burnt, she says. Photos of my life. I'm a widow. I lost my husband's photos there. The city offered her a room at this hostel where she lives with her daughter and granddaughter. Her son-in-law is on the battlefield. A few doors down, Elena Baranovska is trying to get her baby to sleep. And 8-year-old Daniil reads a book about rabbits living underground. They too lived underground in the subway for months. Their house in a nearby village also destroyed when they emerged. I don't have any place to come back to, she says. What will I do with my kids? I don't know. 150,000 people are now homeless here, according to the mayor. This is a neighborhood called Saltivka in northeast Kharkiv. It was one of the hardest hit areas before Ukrainian troops managed to push the Russians out. Even so, residents here say it still comes under fire. Subways that were sanctuaries just weeks ago have transformed back into functioning public transport. There are some who still don't feel safe enough to leave. Ruslan Omelnik has been living in this station since February 28th. He knows the Russians are still shelling the city. They have more weapons and the power, he says, and probably it's more likely they will come back. Above ground, standing in one of the daily lines for humanitarian aid, Natalia Desyatinnikova agrees with him. Because shelling is still happening every day, she says, like on a schedule. It's too early to come back. It's a hard balance to strike, a tale of two cities, each trying to piece itself back together again. One where people fear the worst, and one where they're daring to hope for the best.
So, Margaret, it's so striking for us to see those subways being used as subways again. You're about to leave Ukraine after covering the war extensively since it began, even before. And I wonder, before you leave this tour, what strikes you?
Well, Adrienne, I'm sort of reminded of a plea that the First Lady here, Olena Zelensky, made to the outside world, which is, please don't get used to our pain. And there's been so much pain, and it's piling on and piling on and piling on, which of course brings you, not surprisingly, to the resilience of the people. They've been asked to do so much. The soldiers have been asked to do so much, and they all say, this isn't something we walked towards, we came to you. That sense of challenge is something, challenge accepted is something that sticks with me, but also the psychological trauma that people have been through and their inability to be able to deal with it or process it. Because in a city like Kharkiv, for example, there is this pressure to return to normal. Well, there's nothing normal about what's going on here. People don't have time to deal with their emotions, with loss, and all the rest of it. But the resilience of the people and the faith they have in their soldiers is something that has been consistent throughout our coverage and our time here since the beginning of the invasion.
In the next few weeks, Margaret, what should we all be looking for?
Adrienne, we're all going to be looking at the Donbass and what happens there, these terrible artillery battles going on, Russia seeming to have the upper hand, and we're hearing such dreadful figures in terms of the number of dead on the Ukrainian side. We'll have to look at that to see whether that actually impacts morale, not just on the soldiers, but the families sending them to war and expecting them to defend them and the country.
All right, Margaret, thanks so much. And thanks to Jason and JF. The CBC's Margaret Evans is back in Lviv, Ukraine tonight.